Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have an upload that, well, I am very excited to share with you. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below, my merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Alright, guys, today I have a subscriber who is going to share, well, his brief but terrifying encounter he had in Louisiana. And also I'm going to share with you some other terrifying Dogman encounters. So, I hope you guys are ready. Alright, everybody, today I have a special guest. He had an encounter out in Louisiana a couple years back, and I'm pretty excited that he agreed to share his experience with us. E, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good, Jeff. I'm a little tired, just got off work, but I'm ready to kind of share some light on what I saw that night.
Well, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to share with us. I'm going to turn the floor over to you. That way you can share your experience and what you saw. I think it was, what, 4 or 5 years ago or more?
It was 2019.
Okay.
Summer of 2019.
All right, so just 3 years ago. Well, the floor is yours, my friend, so I'm ready and willing to hear it.
All right, so Jeff, like in our little previous conversation, I'm a little backstory about me. I'm a railroader by trade. Grew up in the country. I was in the military, and what I saw that night, it actually gave me a primal fear. I've never experienced a fear like this. So it's probably June, July of 2019. I was working as a locomotive engineer, running between North Louisiana and South Louisiana. I was in Rapides Parish, which is dead center of Louisiana. And I was in an open area, and the moon, it wasn't cloudy outside. It was a clear night, and it was actually like a bright moon. It wasn't I don't remember if it was a full moon or anything like that. It was just, I remember it was bright that night because there was no clouds. And I was running on a restrictive signal, which means I could not run the train at the maximum authorized speed. I believe I was going less than 30 miles an hour. I do remember that.
Okay.
So I was coming into I went across a crossing, and it's like an open area to the right. And this is actually it was like a Civil War battle there. So like they've got like those signs that's got like a monument stuff, like not like an actual monument, but they got a sign up that is like a battle of so and so, like a little like a stone sign,
like a historic thing happened here. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like a historic sign. And it's a big vehicle trail on the right hand side of me, because this is actually a siding area. It's where like we can do train meets, or we can tie trains down in the siding there, and it'll still allow other trains to pass on the main line. If you think about it, it's two different sets of tracks right there.
Okay.
So I was going, and everybody knows that train lights are bright, and with it being a clear night, I mean, I could see pretty well. And anybody that knows engineers, we're lazy. I'm just gonna put that out there. My feet were propped up, and I was actually eating gummy bears, because that's what I do to stay awake instead of drinking energy drinks. So as I was coming up on this location, I saw something walk across the tracks on all fours, and I know my territory, so I know like how far like certain places are from when I see it. And I knew, I was like, man, that's like 200 yards up there. And it looked to be something big. And we do have bears where I'm from,
Mm-hmm.
but you very rarely see them.
Okay.
But the way it walked across the track, it was almost like it was blurry.
Right.
Like it just, like the light would hit it from my train lights, but it would kind of like refract around it, if that even makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So, man, I sat up in my seat and I went ahead and I started setting some train brakes because I was like, man, what the hell are we looking at? And like, I had plenty of time to slow down, so I set some train brakes, which is it's called setting air, and I come off a throttle. And I was digging in my backpack. We call them grips. I may say grip later on. A backpack's called a grip on the railroad. I was digging in my backpack or my grip, and I was looking for my flashlight because I carry a bright flashlight when I inspect my locomotives prior to departure. And my conductor was like, "Man, you're tripping. I don't think you saw what you think you saw." And I was like, "Man, whatever." So he opened the window because it crossed from my right to my left.
Really
Engineer
quick,
sequence.
Now, when you saw this, I'm not familiar with like the setup of a locomotive in the front. Is there like a windshield so you saw it like straight on, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So a locomotive, it's got a dual windshield. It's got a windshield for the engineer, and the engineer sits on the right hand side of the cab, and then the conductor sits on the left hand side. We each have our own windshield because in the middle it's divided with just like extra bracing and stuff for like wrecks and things like that.
Okay.
But we have regular like side windows. But I saw it, from like the side of my windshield, and it walked across the tracks, and I was able to follow him, her, it, whatever we want to classify this creature at.
Right.
I was able to follow it across the tracks, and that's when I picked the story back up, and I started setting some train brakes and coming out of throttle and getting my flashlight out of my bag. So my conductor, he opened the window, his side window up, and I was shining my bright ass flashlight out there. And Jeff, when I tell you, when my light hit this creature on the tracks, you've got railroad ties, right?
Yep.
And then you've got all these rocks. They're called ballast, and they're formed up high up top, and they kind of slope down on the sides, and they flatten back out. That's what gives you your ride, right? That's where that's what absorbs majority of your weight, other than your rail and your ties.
Okay.
So as I was shining out there roughly where I thought this creature would be, my flashlight caught this thing. It was probably 15 feet from the edge of the rocks, just right there at the tree line.
Wow.
It was crouced down on two legs, and it had like a backwards knee, kind of like a dog.
Okay.
But it was crouched down, and it had a human-style torso. I saw pectoral muscles. I saw shoulders. I saw deltoids. I saw a regular neck. Everything was darker in color, and I saw shaggy fur, probably 3 to 4 inches in length around his shoulders and his neck area. I really didn't pay attention to the chest about any fur.
Right.
Because what got me is whenever I noticed that it had an arm stretched out. It had one arm kind of like, not like on a knee, but not directly like putting the weight straight down, like in between his legs onto the ground. It was kind of like balanced, per se, but it had an arm stretched out and it around a small tree, and you could see where his fingers were wrapped around the tree. And the facial features of this creature, it had taller ears. yellowish orange eyes, and it had a muzzle, and it had teeth. And the way it looked at us whenever we came by, because I looked it dead in the eye because I was scared to death, it looked like it was ready to pounce. But it put a fear in me like I've never had. I have been in combat. I have grown up in the woods hunting and fishing. You know, I have walked trains in the middle of the night before as a conductor, before I became an engineer, and heard coyotes cutting up in the woods, hearing all kinds of movement behind me on the ballast, and found out that it was wild pigs. Nothing has scared me like looking that creature in the eyes. Right now, I have got chill bumps all over my arms and neck just describing this creature again.
Right. I appreciate you taking time, like I said. Now, the eyes, was there like a shine from your light on the eyes, or did it look like their eyes kind of like glowed on its own?
It was more of a reflection from my light, but okay. I've never seen something have a refraction, but like with a yellowish orange.
Right.
You know, it was kind of like when the sun's going down and it's getting almost where it's about to, where you're not going to see the sun anymore. That real like bright, burnt, yellowish orange.
Yep.
That is the color reflection that I had with my light, and I was running just a regular. I think it's like a Bushnell, like 2,000 lumen little handheld flashlight.
Wow.
Yeah, nothing special. I mean, it wasn't like a special light or anything like that. It was just a regular LED bright lumen flashlight that put out a white light.
Right. So if it when it's leaning down and holding this tree, how tall? Obviously, it's crouched. How tall would you say it would be at that time?
Jeff, it was honestly it'd be hard for me to make that estimate because the height difference where I was at from being in an elevated position in a locomotive and seeing it. But based on the height of that tree, because I've been in that area several times and I've seen it like during the daytime, and before I made the swap into my new position, my new role where I don't drive trains anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I've come past that spot probably hundreds of times since this incident, and I would probably say it was probably grabbed like the height of where the hand was wrapped around the tree, or what appeared to be a hand, was probably 3.5 or 4 foot off the ground.
Okay. So that's a pretty good size. And like you said, the tree, prior to the interview now, we had talked a little bit. The tree was about a good 2 to 3 inches around, and it looked like it was just palming it with no issue.
Yeah, it was probably 2 or 3 inches, for the diameter, not the circumference, just the diameter.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Now, when your conductor saw it, what was his response?
He didn't want to believe it, man. You know, and like even to this day, you know, we'll talk about it, and he was like, "Man, I still don't know what we saw."
Yeah, that's pretty insane. I mean, just there you are, you know, and that's how most of these encounters happen. Nobody expects to see something that resembles a friggin' monster from our childhood, you know, and then you see it. And
hey, Jeff, is there any way we could cut this?
All right, so he is on the fast track, no pun intended, for with his career. He is in the railroad business, as you heard, and he got called back into the office. Now, there was not much more that happened on his encounter. I'm going to talk to him in the next couple of days and kind of ask him some questions, this and that, about, you know, Louisiana and some things. But I wanted to share this with you guys because he and I had talked for a little bit, and I had shared my experience with him and how I explained the movements of what I saw that night. He actually explained it almost identical. It was like a blur. It wasn't fast, it wasn't mechanical, it wasn't human-like or animalistic. It was a blur, almost like it didn't belong. Really nice guy, and I'm looking forward to talking to him again. So, with that, I am going to share with you some other terrifying experiences as well. Now, we've all heard that there are multiple Dogman encounters throughout the country, throughout the states, and in these states throughout their counties. Well, there's a county in Pennsylvania that has had, well, a couple of encounters that I'm going to share with you right now. So, my name is Jack, and I was in the Wilmore Reservoir out in Cambria County, Pennsylvania. Back in June of 2018, I had been fishing. At around dusk, maybe 8:30 p.m., I noticed something on the edge of the nearby woods. It was a bipedal creature. As I was staring at this thing, I realized it was white in color, and it resembled a wolf on two legs, just watching me. It was totally white in color, with a huge wolf-like head. Its body was tapered, with an extremely thin waist, a very muscular chest. The arms were long and muscular, with long fingers. Hocked legs, just like a dog. Very well-defined and muscular build. The arms, legs, and head were fur-covered, while the torso and chest, they were sparsely fur-covered. It's probably 7 feet tall. The creature was looking at me for a couple of seconds, then turned to its right and walked along the edge for maybe 30 feet or so. It then ducked into the trees. There were a few other people in the general vicinity, but no one else seemed to notice the creature but me. Today's second experience from Cambria County, Pennsylvania. 2 summers ago, my wife and I had 2 unusual encounters while fishing near Ebensburg, Pennsylvania in Cambria County. Both occurred in an area we used to fish multiple times a week, even late at night. It's been my favorite trout lake since I was a child. The first encounter was around the end of July 2020. I believe 3, maybe 4 p.m. We were at our usual spot for an hour or so. We didn't get any bites. So we decided to try find another spot, the spot my dad had told us about. We had packed up and walked down an ATV path, maybe 15-20 minutes before we found a tree stand set up, and we knew we had walked past the spot we were looking for. I just wanted to fish, so I tried to walk directly towards the creek from the trail, but the brush was pretty thick and too hard to navigate. I could see it was quite swampy on the other side, so I gave up and we started walking back the way we had come from. As soon as we started walking in, we heard something moving around just past the brush. We acknowledged it and assumed it was simply a squirrel or something similar. Shortly after this, we came to a large puddle in the trail with tadpoles in it. So we stopped for a few minutes and watched them swim around. We started walking again and immediately noticed the sound of leaves and sticks again, just in the brush. After a minute, we realized something is definitely following us now. Without stopping, I grabbed my small fishing knife and a larger knife I carry specifically for self-defense and gave my wife the small one. Eventually, as we got closer to our original spot in the car, where the trail opened up into a large field, we were in that field and out of the dense woods, and whatever it was seemed to be gone. At the time, the best thing we could come up with was possibly a cougar, because we knew whatever it was clearly following and watching us. But then, as we discussed it more, we realized it was bipedally walking like a man and could not have been on 4 legs. The second incident was the same creek. but a few miles upstream, and about a month or so later, around 5 or 6 p.m., this time we went to a spot we usually avoided because it's mostly accessible area on the creek, and most likely there will be other people there. We specifically chose this spot because of what happened last time. In this particular spot, a bridge goes over that creek, and there's a large area underneath to fish from. So we climb under the bridge and start fishing, but after a few minutes we hear what sounds like something pacing back and forth, or possibly going in circles in the swamp to our left. Again, I think maybe it's a squirrel or a rabbit. Hey, even a raccoon or a fox. But I'm uneasy because of the last time we had been fishing. So I start occasionally tossing pebbles at the noise, hoping whatever it was would get scared and run away. It'd stop for a minute or two and then start moving again, and I'd throw another and it'd stop again. I did this for about a half an hour before we decided it was time to leave. We stood on the bridge for a bit, which is about 10 feet above that swampy area, and we couldn't see or hear anything. We just left. Again, we believe it was bipedal footsteps. We've not been back to that creek since. We stick to fishing larger dams and try to only go at times when it's most likely other people will be around. I also now carry a large handgun or two when fishing just in case. The creek this all took place at also happens to flow into the local dam. That area where that dam is where Jack had his encounter, ironically enough. But there are no coincidences, is there? Tonight's final encounter is one that I've shared a couple years ago, and it actually still just kind of gives me the creeps each time I think about it, so I figured I'd share it with you guys one more time. Back in the winter of 2001, my youngest son and I were on our way from Boise, Idaho to Medford, Oregon. We had taken a car trailer to his old place in Boise in order to haul his non-running Jeep to his new place in Medford. We hit an area of heavy snow in the southern Cascades at around 2 in the morning. It took 45 minutes or so to get down the mountain. We had, of course, been drinking coffee to stay alert. About 25 miles west of the pass, it became obvious that the last few quarts of the coffee had to be drained. We stopped at a wide spot in the road near the summer tourist haunt that was deserted in the winter. There's a gas station and an ice cream joint on the west side of the road, closed this time of year, and no town or settlement within 30 miles or so. This is tall timber country, and unsettled across the road is a small parking area for an ice cream joint. It's paved, about 200 feet wide, maybe 80 feet deep, so I pull in. As I step out with the 45 on my hip, it occurs to me in a flash to grab the 590 Mossberg. As we walk to the far end of the area, to be well off the road, the hair on my arms and the back of my neck stood on end. The area directly to our front was open, with a depth of 50 yards and width of 100. The night was clear, cold, 8 to 10 inches of snow on the ground, and with a moon almost full, we could see quite well. While standing with my son about 15 feet to my right, I saw, as if springing from the earth in front of us across the open area, 10 or 12 creatures moving rapidly back and forth in a sort of weaved pattern. These things, not human men, were close to 7 feet tall, bipedal with long arms, medium length gray fur, fast on their feet. I brought the shotgun up and slid the safety off as my son was drawing his 45. I don't know if I can adequately explain the overwhelming feeling of menace, but here it goes. I'd been operating on pure instinct since I had stepped out of the pickup. The rotten feeling hit me in a split second before things arrived. The feeling instinct was that we were prey. And we were going to be subject to a very bad death, a slaughter, and be eaten. Not a logical process, gut feeling, and massively overwhelming. As they are moving about in front of us, more appeared and mixed in with them, all the while running about as fast in front of us. My son and I were backing toward the truck. I would not present my back to them, and some of them peeled off right and left in an encirclement movement. They were rolling in fast from the sides now. I could smell and feel their presence. We got to the truck loaded on adrenaline and ready to kill. As we both knew we were in grave danger, we piled into the truck and locked the doors. I had my keys out and ready. As I neared the seat, I had the engine lit and the transmission in gear and gas pedal mashed in one motion. Adrenaline is great stuff. As we fled, something very close by let out a scream of rage, pain. I believe one or more of the group had gotten really close to us in their pursuit, and I ran over the foot of one of them. Yeah, they were that close. We rolled out onto the highway, and I told my son to watch the bed of the pickup as well as the trailer. He had already indicated that he was doing so. We hauled off at least 20 miles before the feeling of grave danger started to leave us. That feeling that nailed both of us, as we discussed soon afterward, was one of being prey. I am not easily led, and neither believe or disbelieve all the Bigfoot, ghost, and werewolf stuff. In fact, I'm a skeptic. My son was speaking with a coworker about 6 months later who had grown up in Prospect, Oregon, about 30 miles south of Union Creek, where the incident took place. He asked if he had ever heard of any strange goings-on in the area. My son was speaking with a coworker about 6 months later who had grown up in Prospect, Oregon, about 30 miles south of Union Creek, where the incident took place. He asked if he had ever heard of anything strange or any goings-on in the area. The coworker went ashy white, pretty much retelling the above tale. He also stated to avoid the place at night. A family friend, a 25-year retired police officer, not given to flights of fancy, and an excellent observer, had a tale very similar from a year before. I told my wife of the event, of course. She looked at me at the beginning as though I had developed a third eyeball in the center of my forehead. That was from shock, because she did believe me, but did not wish to hear the details. She said the tale gave her chills, me as well. As I write this, the hair on the back of my neck and arms are standing straight up. I have not gone back yet to explore, and would not without a large group with shotguns and a flamethrower. My son and I are both sane, sober persons, and are not taken to hysteria. We are wide, very wide, awake as things transpired. We saw and smelled what these were. As a sidebar, neither of us heard footfalls of these creatures. They were silent till I heard one as we were getting out of there. To my knowledge, and I have researched, there is nothing that matches these creatures unless one considers old legends and folktales. Alright guys, the final part of today's upload, I was talking to our friend DJ, or as I like to call him, Boots on the Ground, Virginia. He had moved just recently. Actually, he moved this week to a location about 45 minutes from where he used to be. He stated last night he started to hear some howling out in his woods behind his home, and he had 4 cats that he moved with. As of 6 o'clock p.m., he has not seen 3 of those 4 cats. And those cats are inside cats that go out and then come back at afternoon time. They are always seen. So he is thinking that he may have made a mistake and moved somewhere where Dogman is, well, around the corner. Actually, where he lives is within the Tazewell Buchanan area, so Dogman is just beyond that corner, I guess. So hopefully DJ is safe, and I will talk to him a little bit later tomorrow, or tonight, excuse me, and see if he's all right and see if anything else transpired. So with that, I want to thank you all for tuning in. I truly, truly appreciate it. I hope that you guys enjoyed tonight's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. And with that, may the Great Spirit watch over us, and may He guide us down that path that we call life. Until later on tonight, my friends.